Your skull is ringing. A second ago, a fine powder passed through a hollow bird bone and burned its way up your nose. Now the cold stone walls won't hold still. The carved faces in the dark are starting to look back. And somewhere behind you, a voice you can't quite place is chanting. You're not in a lab. You're not on your couch. You're standing in a stone chamber deep under the Andes, and it's 2,500 years ago. And here's the part that should bother you. None of this is an accident. Someone measured that powder. Someone built this room to do exactly this to you. And when it wears off, someone gets to decide whether you're ever allowed back in. We treat getting high like a modern problem, something we invented somewhere between the invention of boredom and the invention of the weekend. But the chemical trail is old, thousands of years old, and we can still find the drugs today, sitting inside ancient teeth, ancient hair, even the bones people breathed them through. Some scientists think this urge, this itch to climb out of your own head for a while, might be one of the oldest human things there is. So let's actually chase it. How did ancient humans get high? And once they figured it out, why could they never leave it alone? Start with the wildest version, because it's the one everybody secretly wants to be true. In 1992, an ethnobotanist named Terence McKenna floated an idea that picked up a name, the Stoned Ape hypothesis. And the claim was enormous. Around 100,000 years ago, McKenna said, our ancestors started eating psilocybin mushrooms sprouting in the dung of the animals they followed. And those mushrooms flipped the switch. Language, imagination, art, religion, human consciousness itself, all of it, kickstarted by a mushroom. It's a gorgeous story that the reason you can sit around wondering about anything at all is a snack your great-great-grandmother found in a pile of dung. And it's almost certainly wrong. Here's the problem. There's no evidence early humans ate those mushrooms. And even if they did, a trip doesn't rewrite the genes you pass to your kids. Your brain can't inherit a high. But stay with me, because the real story gets stranger. Once scientists stopped guessing and started running chemistry on teeth, hair, pots, and pouches, they found a trail. And it is very, very real. It begins in the most boring place imaginable, someone's mouth. 4,000 years ago in what's now Thailand, a woman chewed betel nut, a mild stimulant, roughly the ancient version of a strong coffee. We know because chemists found the traces fossilized into the hardened plaque on her teeth. Sit with that for a second. Her buzz outlived her by 4,000 years, welded to her own teeth. Jump to Cyprus, 3,300 years ago. Someone seals a little clay juglet shaped, weirdly, like an upside-down poppy pod. Inside, scientists later find papaverine and thebaine, two fingerprints of the opium poppy. Most of the jug was plant oil, so we can't swear what it was for, but the poppy was already in the kit. Then Menorca, off the coast of Spain. And this is where it stops being abstract. Archaeologists didn't find a painting of drugs. They didn't find a pot that once held drugs. They found the drugs in people. Locks of human hair, cut, dyed red, sealed inside carved wooden tubes, and tucked into a burial cave that stayed shut for almost 3,000 years. Test the strands and the chemistry is still in there. Ephedrine, atropine, scopolamine. One stimulant and two deliriants strong enough to make the world hallucinate at you and feel completely real. And the way the chemicals stack down the length of the hair tells you this wasn't one bad bite of the wrong plant. It was a habit, months of it. Somebody knew these plants and kept going back. And 5,000 kilometers east, a completely different group found a completely different door. They skipped the plants you eat. They set theirs on fire. Up in the Pamir Mountains sits a 2,500-year-old cemetery called Jirzankal. Inside the tombs, archaeologists found little wooden braziers packed with charred stones and baked into them the chemical signature of cannabis. Not the mellow, wild stuff either, unusually high in the compounds that actually get you high. The setup was dead simple. Heat the stones, lay the cannabis on top, let the smoke rise, and breathe. No pipes, no paper, just hot rocks and mourners pulling that smoke in over a grave, which is why the first hotbox in human history may well have been a funeral. So this isn't one weird culture doing one weird thing. It's Asia, Europe, the mountains of Central Asia, separately, with no memo passed between them, all clawing at the same door. And some of these people weren't dabbling, they were pros. In a rock shelter in the Bolivian highlands, almost 4,000 meters up, archaeologists found a 1,000-year-old ritual bundle, carved tablets, spatulas, snuffing tubes, and a pouch stitched out of 3 fox snouts. Because of course it was. That one pouch turned out to hold the richest chemical stash ever pulled from a single object in South America. Cocaine, bufotenine, harmine, DMT, a possible whisper of psilocin. At least 3 different psychoactive plants in one bag. Now here's the detail that raises the hair on your neck. 2 of those ingredients, harmine and DMT, happen to be the exact pair you need to make a drink like ayahuasca work, because one shuts off the enzyme in your gut that would otherwise destroy the other. We can't prove this person ever brewed it, but both halves of that combination were sitting in the same bag. And several of those plants don't grow anywhere near that freezing high-altitude cave. They come from warm lowlands, hundreds of kilometers away. So whoever owned this bag either traveled a very long way or was plugged into a trade network moving rare, mind-altering plants across mountain ranges. This wasn't someone grabbing a random mushroom by the campfire. It was a supply chain. Which is exactly why we want the cave paintings to be real so badly. There's a mural in Spain, 6,000 years old, with a tidy row of capped little shapes that one researcher is convinced are local psilocybin mushrooms. There are figures out in the Algerian desert that people swear are mushroom-headed dancers. And maybe. But paint isn't chemistry. You can't run a lab test on a wall. So these stay in the maybe pile. Gorgeous, tantalizing, and a pretty good mirror for how badly we want to see ourselves in the smoke. For proof, we have to go back underground. Back to that stone chamber. Chavín de Huántar, a giant temple complex in the Peruvian Andes, deliberately built with hidden corridors and narrow underground galleries that controlled light, sound, and exactly who got to go where. In 2025, researchers examined 23 artifacts pulled from one of those restricted galleries, many of them bone tubes, from layers dating between roughly 800 and 350 BCE. 6 of them carried the chemical fingerprints of 2 plants, tobacco and vilca, whose seeds carry DMT. The residues suggest the plants were dried or toasted, likely ground, and inhaled rather than smoked. It's the oldest hard evidence in the Americas of anyone taking those 2 together. But it's where the tubes were found that changes everything. They weren't scattered through ordinary homes. They weren't tossed in the trash. They were clustered in small, restricted rooms buried deep inside the temple. Spaces that held only a handful of people at a time that most people were never allowed to enter. And that's the real discovery. At Chavín, the high wasn't something you could just reach for. It was something a few people controlled. Picture stepping into that chamber with no electric light, no chemistry, no way to tell a hallucination from a genuine visitation. The people running the ritual didn't have to explain the molecule. They controlled the room. They controlled the powder. They controlled who walked through the door. The visions were real, but so was the lock on the door. So, how did ancient humans get high? Just about every way they could find one. In their teeth, in their hair, in the smoke over a grave, in a fox-skin bag hauled across a continent. We'll probably never know if a mushroom really built the human mind. It almost certainly didn't. But the reaching, that old stubborn need to step outside your own head for a little while and see what's on the other side, runs deeper than any single drug, and further back than we can clearly see. And by the time the trail reaches Chavín, there's something lying right beside the drugs. A room built to hold the experience. A powder someone else prepared. A door, and someone standing next to it, deciding whether to let you through.